Hey, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I'm the host of Ghosts of Bacon, Jake Roberts, and glad to see so many familiar names here popping up in the chat already. Thanks. Hey, my friend Dave, good to see you. William, wow, you're up late tonight, my friend, across the pond. Jason, asking the first question of the evening. I'm going to post it there. What will this year bring us in this quest? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, my friend. So good evening, everyone. It's great to be back after a brief hiatus. And here goes some bacon. I wanted to hear, even though we couldn't, well, we could have, but I decided to not have a show on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, as I felt it's more important to spend time with friends and family in the holiday season. And I postponed the episode until this evening. And so, as such, I wanted to reflect on the last year, things we've discovered, guests I've had on, and then also kind of project ahead in terms of some of the things that we have on tap and in store for you in the coming year. And so I want to say hello to all my friends out there. And there's my sisters, Patty and Penny are both in the house. My friend Jan Squares, good to see you. Kat, good to see you. Amy, always a pleasure. And if you scroll back in the chat, everyone, you'll see how Amy's spending the evening while I'm on the big screen in her house. I appreciate that, Amy. Especially the bottle of scotch you said you had ready. Ray, my friend, good to see you. Tom Burns in the house. Always pleasure, man. My good friend Curtis. Good to see you, man. So, you know what? I want to start off and just kind of share with you. I'm going to put on my proud face here for a little bit because I think we've done a lot of really great work in the past year. I've had a lot of help, and as my good friend John Edwards always says, it takes a village to get this information out and to solve all of these mysteries that we're working on. And so I'm going to give some shout outs to those friends who have been helping me along the way. You know who you are. But in the last year, I've done 22 episodes of The Ghosts of Bacon. And and so as I always try to do them every other week, 2 a month, I think that's pretty good where I only took a couple of weeks off there. And like I said, it's always for holidays when I think that, people are going to be spending time with family and friends. Going all the way back to the very first episode I did in the year 2022 was my good friend Court Lindahl. Had him on the show, and we talked about his latest work, his latest book. And if you haven't been checking out History Hunters with Court and his podcast, you need to check that out. I can't always be there live, but I always check it out on YouTube. And as usual, Court, his research, your research, Court, is beyond compare. So kudos to you, my friend. Some really great videos he just posted. You're going to want to check those out. And one of the coolest parts of all of this research that I've been doing, and I've said this before, and but it are the people. This all started out due to my involvement in the Oak Island mystery and the Curse of Oak Island show, and doing a couple of war room presentations. But really, for me, the biggest benefit are all the people I've met along the way, and other people have started to take up the mantle of doing the kind of research that I'm doing, the cipher work that has been put off for too long, due to, well, frankly, negative press. Back at the turn of the century, there were some writers who wrote books claiming that they had decrypted ciphers in the works of Shakespeare's First Folio. And Ignatius Donnelly, Elizabeth Owen Ward. I'm sorry, I got that wrong. Elizabeth Ward. But there are a lot of different researchers who unfortunately got it wrong. They knew they were on the trail of something, but unfortunately, when it came to the kinds of methodologies they used, they kind of messed it up. And because of that, the errors they made, the experts of cryptology, Elizabeth and William Friedman, came along and when they retired from their government work, winning World Wars One and Two for us, thankfully, um, they decided to return to their original area of research, which was, the Baconian ciphers of Shakespeare. And so what they did was they reviewed those books, and they found that the methodologies that were used in decrypting those ciphers were invalid, and therefore the findings were invalid. However, the problem arose that many people still chose to believe in the work of all of those decryptions, and the main message of those decryptions were what came to be known as the Prince Tudor theory, that Sir Francis Bacon was the son of Queen Elizabeth I. And yes, Dave, 22 is a good number. um, and so when we look at that and recognize that that work had been debunked, suddenly, the idea that the discovery that I made that Francis Bacon was the son of Mary Queen of Scots and Francis II suddenly has validity. And unfortunately, the community of Sir Francis Bacon, we have a lot of holdouts in the Prince Tudor theory, and so I've been running up against that since I began, but I'm going to continue doing the work and just following the clues where they lead me, and I'm just going to keep putting that information out there. And in the process, we've been gaining ground, gang. There are people who are starting to pick up on the truth here, and I want to basically give a shout out to a bunch of my friends here I have listed, who have kind of helped me along. They've all been guests on the show in the last year. Of course, John Edwards, William Russell, you're watching. Jason, you're watching as well. Jason Mercer, Gretchen Cornwall. We've had some good conversations online, and you've been a guest on the show. I'm going to have you back to talk about your newest book. My friend Amy Mullican, and of course, I need to give a shout out to my good friend Jeff Friedman of the Oak Island Beyond podcast, because Jeff is always been a strong supporter of this podcast and of my work, and I really appreciate the help. And of course, Linda, you as well over there in Oak Island and beyond. So, when I look back at all of the people, and Dave Petrella, you're in the house. I have you here listed as well. The more people who actually take a serious look at the work we've done and the methodologies we've used and how the messages repeat. It's repeatable. Repeatability is one of the cornerstones of the scientific method. And when we are being purely objective and just following the clues where they lead us, we keep getting the same messages. Francis Bacon is the son of Francis II, Mary Queen of Scots. And so in the coming year, when my next Jenny, it's okay. You're right on time as usual. No worries. And AO in the house. Thank you. Good to see you. So moving forward into this next year, I'm pretty excited after my next book comes out, and I would expect to see that out probably February break, when I can finally put all of the final touches and last bit of editing on the next book, which at this point I'm ready to go ahead and reveal the title. The title is going to be The Keys of the Rosi Crosse and the Ghosts of Bacon. Of course, I had to include Ghosts of Bacon. So that's going to be the title of the book. I'm still working on the subtitle. But in that, there are a couple of revelations that I'll be including, such as multiple aliases used by Sir Francis Bacon. I'm going to be also including the formula we can use to actually check to see whether they're valid or not, as well as some aliases used by his close friend. And a lot of people don't know the close connection between these two people, but Francis Bacon and Sir Walter Raleigh. Walter Raleigh was also one of the central figures in the fraternity of the Rosi Crosse. And when you actually see the information that I provide about him, well, that's going to be one of the biggest bombshells of my next book. It's really pretty, once again, unbelievable information, but I've gotten rid of that word out of my vocabulary after doing all this work over the last few years. So along with that, I'm also going to be revealing the answers to a mystery associated with Shakespeare's sonnets. Um, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. Want to go to some of the comments. And my friend Zantlow's here. Tom, Linda, Jan, let's see. Barbara, hi, good to see you. And thank you, Jason. You know what? That's just it. I want to thank you instead, because you were one of the very first ones to kind of pick up the mantle and start moving forward with a lot of this research. And every single one of your episodes that you're on this podcast goes viral, and you have the highest views out of any of my shows. And so I want to thank you, my friend, for really digging in and taking some, these crazy ideas seriously, and doing your own work. And you've taken it on your own, and you've just taken it to a whole new level, my friend. So I really appreciate all the fine work you're doing, for sure. And yes, that is exactly it. The mysteries of the sonnets. One of the things that people don't realize about Shakespeare's sonnets, and Linda, thank you so much. I'll get to the sonnets in a second, but everyone, all you wonderful people who have helped me along the way. Like I said, I want to take this moment here at the beginning of the year and reflect on the last year, and thank you all for your support. I appreciate you so much, Linda. Thanks. So one of the big mysteries about Shakespeare's sonnets, there are a series of them that are referred to as the Fair Youth series, where Shakespeare is expressing his love for a young man. And of course, you can imagine where, a lot of the theories of that go. But then there are also a series called the Dark Lady series, where he expresses a love for a terribly ugly and terrible person, a terrible woman, but he just can't stay away from her. And lastly, there is the Rival Poet series. Now, each of these sonnets, the series of the Fair Youth, refer to the Fair Youth, as you can tell, hence the name. And the Dark Lady sonnets all refer to this one female figure that Shakespeare finds irresistible for some reason, or at least that's the interpretation of the theory. And then, of course, the Rival Poet. And it has always been a huge mystery of who these people are. Now, a lot of people have believed that that they know who the Fair Youth is. They've never been able to identify the Dark Lady, and they suspected the Rival Poet may have been Ben Jonson, or perhaps Christopher Marlowe, Kit Marlowe. However, all of these answers are wrong. And so in the next season, the next year, I will be sharing with you the identities of all three of those people. The answers are in the sonnets. The answers are in the cipher texts of Shakespeare's plaque, which I decrypted in Holy Trinity Decryption, my first book. And so that's what I'm going to be getting into here in the next year, along with, like I said, the aliases. Everyone are going to blow your mind. And in particular, many of them, as I've mentioned in previous podcasts, are artists. I've mentioned how Francis Bacon revealed in my first book that he used the alias of Tiberio Tonelli, a Renaissance master artist. And as it turns out, he used other names as well. And when we start looking at the likes of Sir Walter Raleigh, because I revealed that I'd actually initially gotten it wrong in my first book. I thought that Nicholas Hilliard was a name used by Francis Bacon. In fact, that was Walter Raleigh's alias as an artist working for Queen Elizabeth as a spy. So a lot of this stuff are really, really pretty interesting. And I think that you're really going to enjoy that. Thank you, Linda. And, I want to put this up. Linda Simon says the work all you folks are doing is amazing. So much history being uncovered. Thank you very much, Linda. And I want to put that up to honor the work of Jason Mercer and William Russell, because listen, gang, once I reveal some of the big bombshells in this next book, Jason and William have been kind of working on a lot of these similar ideas behind the scenes. And the things that they have found that corroborate my work are jaw dropping. And so I can't wait to have them on so they can reveal some of their latest work. And guys, thank you so much, because you've been sitting on some of your coolest discoveries, just because I've asked you to, because I want to really reveal that bombshell regarding a certain fraternal relationship. And so once that's out there, guys, you're going to be able to come on and show us what you found that actually corroborates the messages that I've decrypted. And so this is really, really exciting stuff. I mean, all of the stuff in the last year, like Linda said, is I can't help but echo the word amazing. I still can't believe a lot of these things can even be true. And yet, once again, we've continued to find the bedrock of cipher evidence to support all of these findings. So I really can't thank you enough. And my friend Tom, thanks to Jake, I will never be able to look at a map, misplaced word or letter, specific numbers, or in the same way ever again. Welcome to my world, Tom. I mean, that's how I've been living my life for the past couple of years here, for sure. So true. Yeah, Jan agrees with you. Dave agrees with you. Yes, Kat. In reference to the Dark Lady, black wires on her head, and I suppose it's better than snakes. And Amy, as usual, you're hitting the nail on the head, because one of the things this work has taught me is that when we look at historical documents, or particularly Renaissance paintings, when they are the work of the Rosi Crosse, you're going to see a very specific type of lettering and writing in the corners of these paintings. And many of you probably already recognize what I'm describing here. The types of block lettering that looks very similar to the lettering on the plaque of the funerary monument of Shakespeare in Holy Trinity Church. And so what has happened in the process, come to find out, many of the dates that are listed on these paintings, on these engravings, and on maps are erroneous. They're actually parts of a cipher that are usually, once I show you how to read them, you're going to be able to see that they actually reveal the name of the true artist, or the person who created the painting, or the engraving, or the map. So they're not actually dates at all, which really throws a lot of timelines and work in terms of history out the window. And so let's just say that this work that I've been doing has not been making me a lot of friends in the history world, or even in the Francis Bacon Society, because a lot of the true discoveries that we're making here run counter to what people want to believe. And so, that's a tough row to hoe, but we're doing it. So very true statement there, Amy. Moving on. Yeah, Jan agrees with you. Exactly, Amy. Z's been working on the artist too. And yeah, exactly. And so much of this stuff, Z, is I used to use the word unbelievable, but now that the more that I've seen it, the more I've uncovered. Seeing is believing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it's right there. And once we start seeing how this works, people, it's going to blow your mind. Hey, my friend John is in the house. He just got off the phone with William. No wonder he's still awake over there, John. Glad you could make it, my friend. Thank you for showing up. Good to see you as always. Kat, you know what? That's the problem, isn't it? Once you start seeing a lot of these secrets, a lot of the things that we think we know about history, suddenly just go out the window, and you have to look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And when you recognize that all of these figures surround, who were members of the Rosi Crosse, and in particular, we're talking about Francis Bacon, Sir Walter Raleigh, and Anthony Bacon, because initially, honestly, they were the only members. They were the only ones in this group. And later, of course, Walter's son, Watt Raleigh, was heavily involved. And so now when I look at a lot of these things, I never take anything at face value anymore, Kat. So true. Linda, again, another great point. I hope historians don't look back at the words written today for misspelling to find truths. All they're likely to find is bad spelling, and a lot of text speak, right? LOL, for sure. And Jenny, come to the conclusion that there is the mainstream narrative and then there's the truth. Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that, Jenny, just in everyday life. I think that anyone with half a brain watches the news and takes it with a grain of salt. Particularly anyone who is versed in the use of propaganda, the way I teach young people how to recognize it. It's pretty disheartening. And if the RC is doing the encryption, who else is and why? Well, Barbara, that's such a great question. It really is. And back then, guess what? Everyone who was literate was using encryption. I mean, just like today, anyone who has information that is valuable, when they send it via the internet, they encrypt it, right? And that's why we have digital encryption today. Anyone who was literate back then, who had information that they were trying to pass along or communicate to others, they all used encryption. They used different forms of it. In this case, it happens to be Francis Bacon's cipher systems and the Rosi Crosse. And again, they're all using it for the same exact reasons, to share their secrets with only the people they want to have them. Right? It's to encode the truth so that it will be received by someone else that they trust. Well, thanks, AO, but I don't understand what's going on here. But Jake's live streams leave me in awe at all the mind-blowing information that keeps being unraveled. And thanks a lot, AO. You're always so kind. But at the end of the day, what I really hope people do, and what they really take away from the work that I do, is question things. Like I just said, when we're sitting here in front of a screen and just absorbing what has been orchestrated for us and presented to us as fact, under the guise of bare assertions most of the time, I think it's really important for us to look at that, with a critical eye, and I'm hoping that that's what kind of comes across here, is not to take things at face value. And it doesn't mean that, you have to dismiss everything and just discredit everything. We have the ability to discern. Every human being, this is something that Francis Bacon believed strongly in. We all have the ability to discern truth and understand the world around us, reality and its existence. And, at the end of the day, that's my bread and butter as a teacher. That's what I try to do. That's what I try to do for my students. It's what I try to do in this podcast, is get people to look for the truth and not just blindly accept what they're told, because many of these people, just like Linda had asked earlier, they have an agenda, and we have a right to the truth, I think. Another good point, Zantlo. Z says a lot of countries' most famous artists are not who they think. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true, particularly in the era of the Renaissance. Jan, what'd you say here? I love watching you decipher the hidden meanings in Renaissance painting. I would stare at them all day and not see anything, and then you step in and powder. Thanks a lot, Jan. Yeah, you know what? The Renaissance paintings are some of my favorite things to decrypt, because the way they were done, it just absolutely mind blowing. If you want to have some fun, take a look at there's a famous painting by an unknown artist who I believe was actually it was done by Nicholas Hilliard because all of the colors are perfect and typical of Hilliard's work. Um, of the very first inductee into the Order of the Holy Spirit in France. This was created by Henry III, King Henry III of France, while Sir Francis Bacon was there at court. Go figure. It was a new society. And the very first inductee was Louis Gonzaga, the Duke of Nevers. And for some reason, this obscure duke who became duke through marriage was King Henry's very first inductee into this very select um, group. So if you do a little bit of cipher work with Gonzaga's name, well, guess what it adds up to. I'll just leave it at that. If you want to have some fun, take a look at that painting. You can look it up. It's on Wikipedia Commons, and look at the full version of it, and look at the monograms in the corners and the around the outside, and the blue field around it. It's really a lot of fun. I think you might enjoy taking a look at it. Amy, spitting the truth again, my friend. History is written by the victors, so it's what they want you to know. And that's what happened in Francis Bacon's case. He was a state secret. Elizabeth couldn't let anyone know that Mary, Queen of Scots, had an heir. And suddenly he gets placed with Queen Elizabeth's best friend and her Lord Keeper of the Seal. Yep. So one of the things I do have a New Year's resolution, gang, because a lot of people, one of the things that happens in this podcast, especially when I always try to warn you ahead of time now that I'm going to do a deep dive. And that means that I'm going to go into some deep decryptions and heavy cipher work. But what I'm going to try to do, and this is my the advice of my good friend John Edwards, who just posted a comment that I'm about to put up, and give you smaller bite-sized pieces, a little at a time, and not overwhelm people with things to me that are just so clear that I can just look at it and read it and see it. I have to take baby steps and bring people along with me and give you smaller bite-sized morsels in each episode. So that's what I'm going to try to do throughout the course of the rest of this year. Because everyone says a lot of this stuff goes over my head. I understand that. And it's because I've been doing this so long that it's once you learn how to do this, it's like being immersed in a language. And for me, it is a language. It's like if you go and you live in a country and then you start speaking the native tongue there because you're in it and you have no choice but to do it and learn it and know it and speak it. That's how this stuff is for me. And I have to remember that, it's not as clear to everyone as Linda always says, it's clear as mud. So, yeah, John, their secrets go on to fuel the teachings of Freemasonry. That's one of the things I'm going to be bringing out. There's a whole chapter about the Rosi Crosse evolving into Freemasonry in my book, along with the decryption of that message that states it. And we're going to really kind of get into that. I think you're going to enjoy it. And John, I hope you ride shotgun with me on that episode. Dave says, thanks for teaching about propaganda. That's one of the most important things we need to be doing right now. We're so immersed in it, and so for me, it's second nature because I actually teach the idea of critical. I teach people how to be critical thinkers. We get into cognitive biases and fallacies of logic. And when people use fallacies of logic on purpose, they're creating propaganda. And so being able to identify those tools used by people who intend to deceive us is what really, I think, brings the light. And so thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. Oh, we have an Oak Island question, my friend Dave. David Nelson says, if Bacon and friends did all this coding about Oak Island, are we also to believe they did any excavation on Oak Island? Or are they talking and sharing what they had heard about the island only? Great question, David, because that's one of the things that keeps coming up. And I'm correct me if I'm wrong, David. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the chat. But a lot of people ask me that question because they're firm believers in the Knights Templar theory of Oak Island, right? And again, there are a lot of really great researchers who are bringing forward a lot of information about the Knights Templar. I get it. What's something else that's coming this coming year? Let me answer it this way, Dave, because I can't reveal too much because I'm working with other researchers. We have non-disclosure agreements together, and it could actually turn into something pretty big, possibly even our own TV show. Let me say this: the operations of Francis Bacon and Company, the Fraternity of the Rosi Crosse, was far greater than just Oak Island. Now, in my second book, I demonstrate, and I did a couple of podcasts. One of them I did a series of 3 podcasts where I talked about the Oak Island treasure map, and how Samuel de Champlain's 1612 map leads directly to Oak Island. Well, as it turns out, there are a whole series of maps leading to a whole bunch of locations. That much I can tell you. And let's just say that the Rosi Crosse was more about the maritime, the kinds of actions that were going on the high seas than it was about just being a fun secret society. So when it comes to the Knights Templar information, I've read Zena's book cover to cover and forwards and backwards. And, what a lovely lady, what an amazing spirit. When it comes to the actual provenance of Knights Templar on the island, I don't have an answer to that. I don't have any evidence to support it. Other people have brought forward documents and uncovered documents that they believe are references to Oak Island and the Knights Templar. So who's to say? But when it comes down to it, all of their coding was not just about Oak Island. Most of it, the majority of it, seems to be about Sir Francis Bacon's true heritage as the Dauphin of France and Prince of Scotland. So, and would be King of England. So, in my mind, that's the bulk of it. Okay. Oak Island was just one location, and I have to leave it at that, unfortunately. But such a great question. Yeah, Barbara, another great comment. History is never straightforward. We're still trying to figure out most of the past. There's not a Rosetta Stone for all of this. That's so true. If there is a Rosetta Stone for this, I think it was that plaque on Shakespeare's memorial funerary monument, because it has so many messages within it, encrypted within it, that once you know those key pieces of information and you understand how the ciphers work, that's where the quest really begins, because suddenly it unlocks all of the paintings, all of the maps, and so on. So again, a great observation. John says, Jake, what the team here has done with the King James 1611 has been amazing. And just think it's the tip of the iceberg. It takes a village. And John, before you came, I gave you a shout out with that exact same quote that you always say, it takes a village. It really does. And that's what tonight's episode is really all about. It's just, you get me being very thankful to friendships like yours, Jason, William, and so many others, other people coming on board and taking a look at this stuff. Z, you definitely come to mind as well, starting to jump in there with it. And so something coming ahead too is one of the things I said this before, and then with other guests coming on, I enjoy giving a platform for people who have ideas that are different than mine. Either they go along with my findings, or even if they don't, I really don't care. I just like the idea that people are thinking and looking at this material critically, and sharing it. And so, to that end, something that will be coming up very soon. I have a new friend I recently met, a couple of friends who are looking at the Shakespeare cipher, or the Francis Bacon ciphers as well, and they believe they know the location of the Ark of the Covenant. So they're going to be guests coming up very soon. Really pretty interesting stuff. Deborah's asking, did Francis Bacon have children? And if so, did he pass his secret on to them? Well, history tells us, Deborah, no, he didn't have any children. That is not to say that someone who was heir to two thrones may not have had children and just kept them secret for their own safety. I don't know. I haven't seen any references whatsoever to his own children. However, without revealing too much, there is a nice little nugget of information in terms of the fair youth. So, so many Shakespeare scholars over the years have speculated who the fair youth would be, and that Shakespeare is expressing a homoerotic love for this young man, and even though, and then of course the Dark Lady, he cautions the fair youth to not love her, as if the fair youth was a rival for the Dark Lady, and that scholars speculate was Shakespeare's lover. Both of those assumptions are incorrect. Then, in fact, they couldn't be more incorrect. But as in terms of Bacon's own children, history records that he didn't have any. I know that at some point, one of the other researchers that looks into this stuff was speculating that he actually had a secret son. I haven't seen the information yet, but I can't wait to have him share it. And hopefully, you know who you are. Hopefully, you'll do it here first. So let's see. And again, Jenny's, right on top of it as usual. It's not just what the victors want you to know. It also perpetuates a way of thinking that benefits the victors. That's what a paradigm is, right, Jenny? Yeah. It's that idea of let's frame people's thinking. A famous philosopher discussed the right-left paradigm in terms of politics. And he says it's really beneficial to allow people to have lively debate within a very narrow spectrum and think that they're, speaking freely. But what you do is you just limit that spectrum so they think that that's all there is to talk about, when in fact the truth is probably three-dimensional and could be up here or over here, over there. And so what you do is you frame the debate and allow people to really discuss it and get angry and sling mud and all the rest. But in reality, what you've done is limit the thinking. Hey, there's my friend Stan. Good to see you. And Kat also said, unfortunately, much propaganda is delivered subliminally. We see all the time, when you talk about subliminal messages or subliminal propaganda or influencing, that it's been debunked and it doesn't work. And yet advertisers spend billions and billions of dollars on it every year. So if you want to know what people valued, follow the money. If it didn't work, they wouldn't be spending money on it. And I could spend an evening, and if you guys want, message me and let me know. Maybe I'll do an episode of the Ghosts of Bacon on just propaganda, and in particular subliminal examples that I can pull up at least 20 right off the top of my head that I would be able to show you. Maybe we'll do that for just a fun night sometime. Let's see. Oh, great question, Linda. I live not far from Fort Latour, which is being excavated. Has Claude de Saint Etienne de la Tour or his son Charles ever shown up in your research? Latour has, yes. Son Charles, no. Um, but yeah, that it's about all I can say at this point. I've seen Latour's name has come up at least 4 times in my research. So yeah, I think there's an involvement there. And Barbara with a good tidbit here. Bacon and Oak Island remind me of Plato and Atlantis. There's a major story within the narrative, and following the reality timeline is difficult. Yeah, it sure is. And Barbara, it's funny you mentioned that because in my research, what I've come to believe, and I will outline this for you at some point in a future episode. And many people have already speculated this and stated the same, but my research definitely points in this direction that so Francis Bacon, he wrote a book called The New Atlantis, where he talked about a bit of a utopian society, and I believe that he had planned creating the New Atlantis in the maritime area, centered around Nova Scotia and New England. Yeah, and Amy's making a good point. The Rosicrucians was a network that goes far out from just Bacon. He didn't have to have set foot on the island for the Rosicrucians to be involved. That I think that's true, Amy. Except I happen to know that he set foot on the island. So yeah, very good point. Very true. However, he was there. Um, Thank you, David, for saying this. I try to stay away from pigeonholing a theory and stick to botanical or other physical linkages to find a real link. Thanks. You're very welcome for my answer. Yeah, that's just it, David. I don't. I try to do the same. I'm looking for, information that connects the dots. Let's stick to the facts as they present themselves. And if someone has ideas different than mine, great. I hope I can learn from them. That's really what it's all about. Oh, Ray, are you familiar with the Chichester Cross Monument? Just wondering, my 1911 Francis Bacon book came from England with a connection to the cross in this location. Neat coincidence, nonetheless. That's a really neat coincidence, actually, Ray. Probably neater than you think. Um, I'm not. I have read about the Chichester Cross Monument. I'm not familiar with it, but I know of it, and I, considering the location, it makes sense. Yeah, Amy, that's true. And so we know that the Rosicrucians were in the area in the 1600s. There is proof. There's a lot of it. Yeah. And yeah, John, there are numerous locations for New Atlantis, repeatable. If you've ever read the text, The New Atlantis by Sir Francis Bacon, his characters in the story discover it by being blown off course in the Pacific, and the island of New Atlantis is located just off the coast of Peru. Now, a lot of scholars have thought it was very odd that Francis Bacon would be writing about Peru and an island off the coast of Peru when he had never been acknowledged to have traveled, out, past the Pillars of Hercules, so to speak. And in fact, the ciphertexts state explicitly that he sailed with Sir Francis Drake, so he would have known that location really well. Oh, Jan, good question. Do you think that Francis Bacon became the ascended master Saint Germain, and what does that mean? John, I wish you were riding shotgun with me tonight. That's a question for you. Me personally, no, I don't think so. In my mind, in my understanding of the material, and John, jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. The idea of the ascended master is the enlightenment process. And what that means is that the initiate, through careful study and focusing of the mind, is able to bring about a altered state of the mind, whereby they raise what's called Kundalini energy up from the base of their spine, and what it does is it opens up the third eye, the pituitary gland, right here, in the top of this triangle of your forehead. My forehead, you can tell it's like rather pointy, so I actually do have a triangle there. So that's why you have a eye in the center of a triangle. Uh, so in my mind, that's what that means. A lot of people have taken it literally that it means that the person becomes, has created the philosopher's stone and has become immortal. In reality, my understanding of it is that the philosopher's stone is the noggin. Okay, it's the brain. Okay, you take base gray matter and you turn it into gold, enlightenment. And in that process, what happens oftentimes, people who have this experience report having an out of body experience where they are actually existing outside of the physical body, thereby subjectively, just for themselves, proving the existence of the immortal human soul. And therefore, they become immortal. So, all of the, the folklore about Saint Germain, the man who does not die, is he was referred to. Not really sure what to make of Saint Germain, to be honest with you. I hate to be that skeptical guy, but I tend to look at certain reports of that with more of a critical eye, I guess you would say. So great question, but I personally, I don't think so. No. And again, Tara, thanks for joining us. Did Samuel de Champlain have children? No, not that we know of. I haven't seen. There was a report of him in the early 1600s marrying the daughter of a wealthy gentleman in France for the inheritance, but she was only 12 at the time. So there's no indication that he had children. Yeah, John and David, that's true. I'm not going to put that out publicly yet. Oh, interesting, Amy. I never knew this because I don't really pay attention to numerology, but the number 33 in angel numbers is the number of the Ascended Master. Yeah, I'm not familiar with I've seen it online, the whole idea of angel numbers and so on, but I don't really understand what it is. And chiming in again with the whole propaganda idea, Dave, there's also controlled opposition. That's a fact, and there's a whole lot of that going around. Thanks, Stan. And they're by the way, gang, a lot of the things that are going on in the chat, I'm just kind of a couple of them kind of stick their toe in areas that I'm kind of avoiding tonight. But so Amy's saying yes with the propaganda class. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. I'll do the subliminals. That's a lot of fun. I love doing that stuff. There's brain stew in the house. The out of place man in the 1611 points to the tribe of Asher. Go to the 1611 map and adjust this on the compass rose, and you'll get different coordinates to Asher, Arkansas. Speaking of which, Brain Stew is going to be a guest coming up soon. Now I know who you are, Brain Stew. Good to see you, my friend. You'll be able to explain that to people when you come on. Yes, Dave, you're talking about Edgar Case and Edward Casey. Yeah. Zantlo's asking, do you think that someone was supposed to lead us to this information earlier and failed due to death or infirmity? You know what, Z, that's a definite possibility for sure. At this point, anything's possible. One thing that I do know is that multiple writers and artists over the last 400 years knew what I know. Um, I I know for a fact that they decrypted the plaque the same way I did, because one of the messages of the manifestos of the Rosi Crosse states that anyone who learns the secrets of the Rosi Crosse is automatically a member, and that they, instead of plainly stating them out, that they should reveal them in thematic ways and symbolic ways in their artwork or works of literature. And multiple people have done that over the last 400 years. I'm thinking of just, well, let's, Nicholas Poussin is one in particular, who may or may not have been his real name. I think I do know what the real name was. That should interest a few people. That's going to be in my next book. The You have people from Sir Walter Scott to Edgar Allan Poe, Alexander Dumas, a writer of The Count of Monte Cristo and The Three Musketeers. You have multiple writers. Mark Twain, whose real name was Samuel Clemens. Many of his themes also, he incorporated a lot of these ideas in his books. Like I said, I'm not the first person, but I think that that's what they did. Instead of just telling the world, oh, by the way, this is what happened, the way I am, they were incorporating it into their works of art. Yeah, Dave, we'll be finding out soon, I think, about that Arkansas location for sure. Yes, Jason. The Secret Prince was sailing with Drake on the ship Golden Hind. He sure was. He sure was, my friend. Thanks, AO. I'm going to give this a shout out to the rest of the guys here and ladies. The mystery of the Voynich manuscript has nothing on the work of Jake and Company are doing with this rabbit hole, and that's why you guys keep getting better and better. Booyah, I guess, maybe. Thanks, man. And again, it's one of those things where the Voynich manuscript is interesting as a mystery, but for me, the idea of being able to actually find answers as opposed to just enjoy the mystery, and what a lot of people do when it comes to Baconiana and the Bacon ciphers is they simply look for the numbers and the signatures, and they identify them, say, oh, here it is in Henry Henry V. Here it is on page such and such, as if that's the end of it, right? And when it comes to that kind of work, and people start bringing up the idea of, and I did an episode on saturation, number saturation. Once you get to a certain number of numbers, then suddenly they're not unique anymore. If that's all you're doing with the ciphers, then yeah, suddenly saturation could be an issue. But when all of a sudden you're actually decrypting a message that has a context and the number matches the context, that's when you really have something and you're using the system. So again, so I'm going to go ahead and put this up, Brain Stew, as a preview of the episode that you're going to do with me. But at the coordinates of Asher, Arkansas, there's a huge keystone cave, and a 15th century shovel was found, and also leg bones. And everyone, this is not a bare assertion. I've seen the pictures. Brain Stew actually sent me the pictures. I've seen it. It exists. And we're going to do a future episode on that for sure. And Dave's asking what was supposed to be buried there. Not telling. Oh, William. And where can you learn this power? Are you talking about the idea of the Kundalini energy and the enlightenment process? There are multiple books out there that teach you how to do it. The one that I found probably the clearest and the most useful was by a man named Robert Monroe, who created the Monroe Institute, also down in Virginia, Dave. And it's called Journeys Out of the Body. Yeah, William, he just, Dave said send him a message. Dave, so am I. So am I. I have a few things to add to that myself. Let's see. Jenny's asking, who is the most recent person to reveal their membership in the Rosi Crosse? Not really sure. You mean in terms of like a famous author or something like that? That's just it. People don't reveal it. They reveal it through the use of the themes of the truths of the Rosi Crosse, and they encode it within their work in terms of the symbology and the archetypes they use. But I mean, for that matter, by just publicly saying, here's what the messages mean, I guess I did. Yes, Dakota Ring. Henry Longfellow's poem, Evangeline, A Tale of Arcady. I've detected the glint of a possible biliteral cipher in it. Would not surprise me in the least, Dakota Ring. Cat's asking Count of Monte Cristo, loosely based on Bacon being hidden and all. Yep. Yeah. That was just that again. Every single one of Alexander Dumas' works has these messages in it. The Man in the Iron Mask, for example, is a huge one, but it involves some of the things that I'm not prepared to reveal yet until my book's out. But yeah, it's all in there, Kat. Oh, you did mean the Man in the Iron Mask, but Monte Cristo's in there too. Yes. And those of you who aren't familiar, Man in the Iron Mask, a prisoner is kept in a tower, forced to wear an iron mask covering up, keep his identity secret from his keepers. Absolutely. And he was rumored to have been the Prince of France. Yes, he was. I'm going to throw that up there, Dave, just because I love that movie. I love that comic book or graphic novel. So, there we go. So, Amy, if you didn't notice, Dave just told you to send him a private message about being on a show. You know what, gang? That we're already at an hour. And I didn't have anything planned. This is all totally unscripted. But just so you know, in 2 weeks, we're going to have the Bacon birthday bash again. My birthday is Friday the 20th, and his is on Sunday the 22nd, the day of our next podcast. So wear your party shoes. We're going to bacon it up and have a good time. And I'll see if I can throw together a little dog and pony show for you. After that, as has been indicated, we have a friend of mine who is going to be presenting some information about what he's found in Arkansas in the Ozarks. What are the last? Wait, Ozark. What are the last 3 letters of that? Oh, the first 3 letters of the word Arkansas too. What an interesting coincidence. Ryan, I can't wait to have you on. And that's right. We're going to have a birthday party at 1:22, Jason. Faux show. All right, gang. Thanks, Penny. I appreciate it. Thanks for popping on. And as always, I always love your support, sister. Yes, and we're gonna make some bacon and eat it during the show, Jenny, for sure. All right, gang. Listen, this was a great way to start the new year with all of you joining me here. I appreciate you very much. I appreciate your help and support. And listen, I keep throwing it out there. All you need to do with the work that I'm doing and William's doing, Jason's doing, John's doing, Stephanie Pedersen is doing, all of us, is look at it. That's all you got to do. And then start looking for it yourself, and you will be able to see what we see. Please, I keep throwing the challenge out there for more and more people to, kind of take up the effort here, because we're gaining traction, and the word is getting out there, and some pretty exciting things are on tap here in this coming year. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but like I had said, um, we have big things happening here in the Ghosts of Bacon, um, and like I said, we have some really, really cool people we're associated with now because of all of this. And for me, that's the best treasure. So, thanks for joining me tonight, people. And until next time, just be cool to each other. Be safe. Take care.